want to tell you a story about my tattoos. Clearly, I have a lot of them. Obviously, it wasn't always like this, and yet despite all these tattoos, the one that I remember most was my very first one. You never forget the first one. I spent about a good year and a half obsessing what my first tattoo was going to be. My first tattoo on my back, upper right shoulder. Then maybe about 5 or 6 years later, I decided I wanted a whole back piece, so I started getting that outline. To this day, it's still not finished. But then I went and started doing my right sleeve. When the right sleeve was done, did my left sleeve, and then got my chest pieces done, then got my neck done. I'm at that point now where if I wanted to put a small tattoo somewhere, I wouldn't even overthink it. Quite frankly, I've already gone beyond that point where it even matters. And I want you to remember that when I tell you what it is I'm about to do today. You remember this? Anyone who follows my channel will probably know what this is. This is the Scepter water tank that I modified so that it can be pressurized. Added a spout, added a port where you can pressurize this thing with air, and I have loved this system. A lot of people have been asking me to give them updates whether or not I'm still using it. Damn right I'm still using it, except that it does take up space in the back, and I am trying to reduce the amount of stuff I put in the cargo area. And so I am doing something new today. This is the WaterPort. A lot of you know what this is. You have seen it mounted on a ton of overland rigs because a lot of people really like rocking this system. I've been eyeing this thing for a while now because despite that I really like the Scepter water can that I modified and it has treated me well over the years, there are just some things about it that's no longer fitting my needs. Number one, it does take up a lot of room in the cargo area. I have to stuff that thing in there along with all my other gear, and I'm trying to reduce the amount of stuff I put back there. So if I can find a way to have some water mounted to the outside of the rig, I think that'll be ideal. Number two, when I modified that can, all I did was add a Schrader valve. That means that if I wanted to pressurize that can, I needed to either bring a hand pump, which I did not want to do, or attach an air compressor to it, which means I have to plug up to my battery or attach it to a 12 volt. It was just an extra step when all I wanted to do was have some pressurized water to wash my dishes. And that's why I think this system will just work out a lot better. I can mount it to the outside of the vehicle, freeing up some space in my cargo area, and it's easy to use when I need it. There is a Schrader valve on here, so if I want to pressurize this thing with an air compressor, I can do that. But if I just want to wash dishes and I don't want to pull out an air compressor and all that stuff, there's a hand pump on this as well that will allow me to get this thing pressurized and start using it immediately. You know, getting one of these was actually my wife's idea. She's been wanting one of these for a while, something that we can keep in the Jeep, but also move over to the 4Runner depending on which vehicle we use, because we go to the beach a lot. And when we come back to our vehicle, our feet is usually covered with sand, and I would bust out the Scepter can. I still have to attach a hose to it, attach an air compressor or a hand pump to it, get it pressurized, and by that time my wife is just like, forget it, just go home and we'll rinse off there. Well, having one of these is going to make that a lot faster and easier. I can just pump it up right away, rinse our feet off, get in the vehicle, and we are done. Let's go over what this kit comes with. The WaterPort itself looks really good, super sleek, nice embossed logo in the front, and then up here, this is your fill area and pump. Fill it up with water and then put this back on. When you're ready, you can pump up and pressurize this thing with this little handle up here. If you do want to pressurize this with an air compressor, right over on the side here, you have a Schrader valve. Just unscrew this little cap, hook up your air compressor, begin pressurizing it. They said do not go more than 40 psi, which is pretty much a lot. You know, before with my Scepter can, I was only able to go up to maybe 15, and that was already pushing it. I didn't want it to explode. If you have an onboard air compressor, then you can go ahead and just attach it to that, and you'll be able to keep this thing pressurized so that you don't have to worry about pumping it up. And then right underneath that is the inlet for the hose. This is where you screw in your hose with your sprayer. Then over here you have some riv nuts attached. This is how you mount it to your vehicle, or you can also mount it on the sides. They have some riv nuts on both sides of this thing as well in case you want to mount it from there. And then finally you have this little thing over here. It doesn't say in the instructions what this is, but if I had to guess based on how it looks like, This looks like the pressure release valve. So you would loosen this thing up, and then that would basically depressurize this thing so it's not holding in all that pressure. Now this thing also comes with a hose and sprayer. The hose has quick connects at each end, which just makes it easier to connect on and off to your sprayer and to your water port. It's decent. I don't know, it doesn't feel as like rigid or as robust as my other sprayer that I've been using. This thing is metal. You can tell that this thing is probably not going to get cut up on you. But I'm going to try to run with this for a while because this is a little bit more compact than this. Now for the sprayer, pretty standard sprayer. It does feel a little light and kind of plasticky and cheap, but I have used a WaterPort sprayer before and they work great. It just doesn't feel as like robust as the one that I've had before. This feels like it has a lot more heft to it, but that's just me nitpicking. You got instructions. And then for mounting, this mount goes to the back of your water port on those riv nuts. So you put that on there and then you mount this to your roof rack or to your vehicle or wherever it is you're gonna mount this thing. And then basically what it does is you slide your water port onto this thing like this. And then once they're together, you'll see that these holes line up here. You can put a padlock through it, keep it locked in place so that no one can steal it, but also so that it doesn't come flying off on you. So you would definitely need to put something there to keep this in place. Now this thing also comes with a trailer hitch if you want to attach it to your trailer hitch. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. You put this in your trailer hitch, this goes through right there, and then you get a cotter pin to lock it in place like this. And then you would basically take your mounting plate from earlier and you mount it this way, and now you can mount your water port to your trailer hitch. This thing also comes with two regulators. The shorter one, this is what gets attached to the water port itself. You attach it to the water port and then it has a quick connect at the end, so you plug your hose into that. Then you can turn the water on and off up here. The longer one, this gets attached to the garden hose at your house, because if you want to fill the water port through the hose without unscrewing that thing at the top, this is what you use that for. So you attach this to your garden hose at home, attach the quick connect hose to here, go ahead and start filling it up, and you can fill it up that way. And then finally, necessary hardware. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get this thing mounted, but before we do, we need to prepare the tank for it. First up, mounting this bracket to the back using the 4 bolts that are provided and a 3/16 Allen key. All right, up next, we're gonna add this short regulator to the bottom valve down here. This thing did not come with plumber's tape, but I'm gonna add some anyway just for safe measure. All right, this thing is all set up and ready to go. Now remember, in the beginning of this video, I told you a story about my tattoos. The reason I brought that up is because where I plan to mount this, I'm mounting this directly on the side of my hardtop right below the rear windows. So yeah, I'm gonna be punching holes in this hardtop. Normally, I'd be freaking out, but you know what? This hardtop has so many holes in it already, from cable glands to rooftop tent to everything else, that a couple more holes for this water port is not really gonna matter. And where it's gonna be located is gonna be really, really convenient for us. So let's go do it. All right, what I want to do is create a support brace for the back of this mount. This mount will be mounted to the outside of the vehicle on the hardtop. So we're going to drill through the hardtop and then come out on the other side and use some nuts. Well, what I don't want is, once we put the water port on here, with the water port being heavy with water inside it, I don't want it to start kind of pulling at this, and then the nuts that are inside the vehicle is going to start to dig into the hardtop. Now we could use some really wide washers, which I'll probably do for the bottom, but for the top, just to give it a little bit more rigidity, is I'm going to make something like this, and this will basically sandwich the hardtop right there. So that way, on the inside of the vehicle, you'll have the nuts and bolts going through this thing as well, and it's kind of distributing the weight evenly across this thing. It'll make a little bit more sense once I build it, but first let's cut this thing out, kind of measure it, and get a template going. Alright, so I ran into my very first issue, one of those, what the hell was I thinking? I punched out these holes and they were fine, they go right through, but as I started to punch the bottom ones, I started getting some resistance and I was wondering why, but I could still kind of see through it. And then I realized that once we go inside here, I actually started to punch right into this little ridge because I completely, I don't know what I was thinking, overlooked the fact that this ridge actually sits higher than where this thing comes down. I completely forgot that some of this body panel still goes up in there just a tad. I should have gone a little bit higher and I did not do that, and that is definitely my fault and I'm eating it. Let's just move on with the rest of the installation and we'll come back to it later. Ladies and gentlemen, Asia Samson making mistakes on his rig so you don't have to. Bonehead, move, bro. Need a f***ing drink. Vodka Red Bull, the drink for people who are filled with self-loathing. God. You know what? I'm releasing the video anyway because people need to see what the hell I did wrong. You know, I'm a measure once, cut twice. I'm a measure twice, cut once kind of person. And in my defense, I did do that. Like a lot. I made sure that the bracket was level. I made sure that the holes were in the right places. And I just, for some reason or the other, did not account for the fact that the ledge that the hardtop sits on the body of the Jeep is higher than the lip on the outside. And I don't know why that didn't dawn on me. And the thing is, you can't really tell from the outside where the ledge is on the inside. And I swore I had that measured out just right, that I had the space for it. I didn't want to put the bracket too high up because I didn't want the water port to sit too high that it's starting to go into the window area. I wanted it to be kind of dead center between the window and then where the body of the Jeep begins. And I didn't think it through. But I fixed it as best as I could. Whatever you do, don't go looking at this thing from the inside. Yeah, at this point, those two mounting holes at the bottom, they're just not gonna be used. I'm hoping that the 2 bolts that I have on top is enough to hold this water port. And it should, because I did brace the back with an aluminum bar, which is gonna dissipate the load a little bit, so it's not gonna buckle my hardtop or anything, so it should hold it. But those 2 bottom holes, yeah, they're just not salvageable. Like, I went right through that shelf, so there's no way for me to get a washer back there to kind of hold a nut and bolt in place and hold the bracket there. I even thought about using riv nuts, hopefully putting a riv nut in there and then bolting into that, but there's nothing for the riv nuts to grab onto. So what I ended up doing was just filling the hole with some silicone, and then on the outside used some of these plastic plugs that you can get at the auto store. I just used these and I kind of plugged it into the mounting holes. They're not going to do anything. They're just aesthetic, but at least it doesn't look so messy. And then on the inside, I used some Bondo to kind of clean it up a little bit. I'm going to paint it white and hopefully it won't be so noticeable. I mean, you can notice it, but It's not that bad. It could have been worse, and I could have made it worse had I kept trying to fix it. But I will let you know how well just the 2 bolts and the bracket at the top hold this thing. It should be fine, and if it's that bad, then I will just remove the water port, leave it inside until we get to camp, then I can just mount it on there so I can use it outside. I'm really hoping I don't have to do that, because that just defeats the purpose of why I did this in the first place. But it does look good. I mean, after I put the water port on there and you can't tell where the mistakes are, it's a great spot, like for me at least. I know this is not for everyone, and not everyone's gonna wanna mount their water port here. They're probably gonna say, put it on the roof rack or something, but I didn't want it on the roof rack just because it'd be too high. Then I have to get a hose up there and then bring it down, and I have to keep climbing up on top just to pump it and kind of pressurize it, and I didn't wanna go do that. Here, it's like right at this level, perfect for when I'm washing dishes. I can just grab the hose, wash my dishes, and if I need to pump it with air, it's like right there, and it makes it so much easier having it at this level. Some of my friends suggested maybe putting it on a hitch mount, but the thing is, that's gonna sit really low and it's just taken away from the departure angle. So if we're doing some obstacles and we're kind of climbing a little bit, that thing might just scrape if it's on the hitch mount. So I definitely don't want it there. The only other kind of concern though is if we're going down some really narrow trails, there's some branches that are gonna be scraping the side of the Jeep, and you know, it might be bad if some huge branch basically hits this water port and kind of tears it off. But I doubt that's going to happen, and if the trail got really tight like that, I would probably step out of the vehicle and remove the water port so that it's not getting damaged. Personally, I like it. I like where this is sitting. It's very convenient, and if you like it and if you want to do something like this, just make sure you mount that bracket just a tad bit higher. Just don't hit the window. Get it a little bit higher and you'll be able to clear that shelf. I'm telling you, if I would have just gone maybe like a 1/4 inch and gone up just a little bit, I would have cleared that shelf no problem, and this would have been the fastest install. But the problem was I jinxed myself by saying this was going to be easy, and you know what happens when you say something is supposed to be easy. But anyway, I hope you liked the video. I'm trying not to make this too long because there's not much really to say about it. I cannot wait to begin using it. We're going on a trip in about a couple of weeks, and so I'm definitely going to be using it on there, and I will let you know how it's holding up just from being mounted with those 2 mounting holes. I honestly, really, I don't think it's going to be a problem. If you did like this video, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and also consider supporting us on Patreon so we can continue to make more content like this. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. I can just hear people unsubscribing right now.